Joe Burrow campaigned hard for the NFL to put the Bengals on Thanksgiving. I think he knew what he was doing, right, Mike Santagana?
Oh man, a little rust here and there, but certainly the best quarterback of the night and came away with a decisive victory.
And Art, the number five turnovers for the much maligned Bengals defense.
Oh, boy, did they show up tonight. I tell you what, everybody's been talking about how poor they are and how bad. The coaches have done a great job, and more importantly, those players stepped up big time.
They absolutely did. This is Bengals Squad on Thanksgiving night, Black Friday morning.
Good day. It's the Bengals squad. Good day. It's the Bengals squad. Everything Cincinnati Bengals every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Queen City. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. From the jungle to the playoffs, the Bengals Squad Show starts now.
For the first time in the history of the Bengals Squad Show, we get to discuss a Bengals win on Thanksgiving night in Baltimore, 32-14. The Bengals beat the Ravens. I'm Alex Frank. He's Mike Santagana. He's Coach Art Valero. Today's edition of Bengals Squad is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Gentlemen, what a night. Okay. Joe Burrow made his return. That was enough to get me excited. But then the Bengals not only beat the Ravens, they forced 5 turnovers. Their offense looks good. They overcome some early rust. They score 2 touchdowns in the second half. Man, and you know what? It's been a rough season. We know that. But to be sitting here tonight, this morning, right before we go out and buy some Black Friday stuff with a Bengals win, I mean, Mike, Art, this is winning is why you play the game, even with the season the Bengals have had.
Yeah.
I tell you what, great plane ride home.
I don't know if you saw that. They had a great time tearing apart the turkey.
Oh,
the entire team was there. I don't know if I've seen that.
There was it looked like there was like some Cincinnati chili in there. There was some crab. I mean, this is what you work for. This is what you campaign for if you're Joe Burrow. There's a reason why he wanted the Bengals on Thanksgiving. Mike Santagana, from a national perspective on this team, which has obviously been a little negative, critical from that perspective this season, what does this win do for that? And most importantly, what does this win do for the Cincinnati Bengals and their fan base and what's been a rough season?
Yeah, I think nationally you'll get some talk about, well, what's the Bengals' path to the playoffs? Because they won in this big game. And man, this AFC North doesn't look like some insurmountable task to take over, especially when you have wins against Pittsburgh and you have wins against Baltimore now. If they could sweep Baltimore, they hold a tiebreaker over them. They're tied with Pittsburgh, but they're 3-1 in the division. Huge. Despite the bad record, that's pretty good. I think for Bengals fans and Cincinnati in general, though, it's just a shot in the arm. I mean, what the last 5 weeks or so have been where you don't get complimentary football. You get the offense playing really well for 3 straight weeks and the defense not being able to keep up. And then last week, we thought defense played pretty darn well in that game, as well as you could ask, holding them to 19 points, not counting the pick 6 against them. And the offense couldn't keep up. This felt like the first time they got a little bit of complimentary football. There's definitely some stuff that's probably bigger than nits to pick about this offense in the red zone, but never going to complain about 32 points either.
Yeah, Coach, when you're in the midst of a season like this, when it feels like maybe there isn't a whole lot to play for, but yet there is mathematically, how important is it to keep the guys in that locker room focused on, hey, we still got something to play for here? And what's the messaging like from the coaching staff to the team in a situation like this?
Well, you know what? I tell you what, they probably thought going into a short week and not playing well offensively. The spark was Joe Burrow stepping back in the huddle. Defensively, they just kept getting better and better and better. And special teams, we talked about it last week, about how they've been consistently good the entire season. So now you combine that, and today I'm telling you what was a complete football game by a football team. And if they could just maintain that and stack those back to back, who knows what could end up happening in about 3 weeks when they play this team again.
Yeah, we'll see him again in 2.5 weeks, as you mentioned, Coach. But Mike, I go back to last year, and I don't mean to bring this up, but I just think when the Bengals were 4-8, which is where they were last year through 12 games, and they are that this year. And Joe Burrow said after that loss that, we were going to they were going to find out who was with them and who was going to be difference makers and stuff like that. And I remember thinking at that time, is Joe Burrow even going to play? Is there a point of him playing with the Bengals basically out of playoff contention? It's a very similar situation this year. Do you get that? Like, are you feeling a lot of the same things you felt last year, but now all of a sudden you get this win at Baltimore in primetime like they did last year against Dallas, and you go, wait a second here. We've got some meaningful football going into December.
Yeah, I think part of the problem here is just I don't think of high-end quarterbacks that typically just sit out when healthy when it's December. It's November. So that's what runs through my mind of like, yeah, it would stink to not have meaningful football in a way, but at the same time, I mean, these guys are going to play. It is nice to get some meaningful football. I thought last year, the AFC North, like I mentioned this year, it's not looking like a world beater division. Last year, it did look pretty good. You had Baltimore playing a bit better than this at this point in the year. You had Pittsburgh looking like an all right playoff team. And the Bengals at 4-8, it felt more of a tall task to try to take down the division. Now, it doesn't look that crazy to take it down. I'm not it'll look pretty at the end if they win it, because at best it's 9-8, and it's probably like a game worse than that if they take it down at 8-9. So one of those type of division winners. I could see it happening. You just look around, you look at this Baltimore team and how they played today. I don't trust them to win a whole bunch of games down the stretch. You look at Pittsburgh and how they've played. I don't trust them to win a whole bunch of games down the stretch. This is not a division that I think you really have to fear going into this. So I think that's one of the big differences for me, where it does feel different with Joe Burrow coming back from an injury, and Joe Burrow, and the talks of him getting shut down make more sense with the injury. And you've got guys missing left and right in this season. You got Trey Hendrickson out a lot of this season. Last year, he was making a defensive player of the year type of campaign. I just think this year, it just looks like everything looks a little more beatable. It's not just the AFC North, because you look at Kansas City today, they look pretty beatable. You look at Buffalo, they look beatable week to week. There's not really a lot of teams out there. And the Patriots, they almost beat them with Joe Flacco back there. I think it could have been gone different with Joe Burrow. Who knows? Yeah. But I think you look across the whole AFC, and you're like, what are you really concerned about? Is it the Colts, the Broncos, the Patriots, the Bills, the Chiefs? Everybody feels like they've got an Achilles heel that can be exploited. So make the playoffs, make some noise, and see how far you can go.
Yeah, the stat that was mentioned a lot tonight on the NBC broadcast, which I thought Mike Tirico absolutely crushed with, and I mean this in a very good way. He crushed, understanding what this Bengals season has been, but also he was very complimentary when things went well tonight. And that's what you want if you're a Bengals fan. When you look at this Bengals schedule, the tough part of it, aside from Buffalo and Baltimore, the tough parts of it for me are behind this team. That stretch from weeks 3 through 7. Unfortunately, Joe Burrow wasn't there. And the stat that was mentioned tonight a lot was the 1-8 record through those 9 games that he missed, which obviously may come back to hurt them at the end of the season. But again, having Joe Burrow back, you see, Mike, as you mentioned, the path is there. It is very reasonable. We'll get to that coming up here towards the end of the show. But Coach and Mike, I'm going to turn back to you on this. Let's talk about Joe Burrow, because he's the headline of tonight. Was he perfect? Far from it. Was he good? He was. He was good when he needed to be. Coach, is that what you come away from this game thinking? He was good when he needed to be. The touchdown to Yosivas, the touchdown to Hudson. Oh my gosh, those throws. That's why you have a quarterback like Joe Burrow, Coach.
Absolutely. You know what? You saw him in total control of the offensive personnel and of the game. And you know what? I kept looking at the game going, as it went on, I'm going, Joe Burrow is, even though he's not playing Joe Burrow-esque, he was better than Lamar Jackson, and both of them are MVP type players. And I'm saying, who was out 2 months? And this is his first start back. And it was totally flipped in my mind.
Mike, do you concur with what Art's saying? Because I think that's a big thing to point out here. Joe Burrow, head-to-head against Lamar Jackson, record coming into tonight wasn't very good. But tonight, he didn't make very many mistakes. He kept the Bengals on schedule. I think he was sacked one time, if I remember off the top of my head. So throughout the entire game, he played Joe Burrow football, Art, as you referred to, Joe Burrow-esque. Clean, efficient, big-time throws. And Mike, as a Bengals fan, that is why you love watching Joe Burrow play football, even with the Bengals record what it is.
Yeah, I thought he made good throws. I think he missed some. I got a little bit frustrated at one point with all of the go balls on like third down or whatever, and then third down and 1, third down and 2, and it's like we're going for 40 yards down the sideline again, and it's incomplete. It gets a little bit frustrating, but then you complete whatever to Tanner Hudson. Look, going to this game, the idea that Tanner Hudson would catch a one-handed touchdown over their best defensive player in Kyle Hamilton never crossed my mind. Joe Burrow tried that pass twice and completed it once. It was crazy. I also want to point out, man, you mentioned sacked once. I don't even remember him getting sacked, to be honest. I thought the offensive line was really good. And you know who else was really good in pass protection was Samaje Perine.
Absolutely.
On that Yosivas play, cross scan, pick up the defensive back blitz on the opposite side to just get a piece of him. He didn't get a great block, but he got a piece of him as Burrow steps up and makes that throw. It's a tough throw, but they got Yosivas on a linebacker, so they got exactly what they wanted from the blitz. That was an awesome block. I thought that was big time. And like I said, I was a little bit frustrated with points in this. I think, man, some of that red zone stuff, when they got that turnover in the low red zone and they come out and empty on 1st and goal from the 2, it's like, come on, he's got a bad toe. Can we at least have the idea of a run here? If we're gonna run something, can we run the old Gruden spider 2Y banana or something? Give him something easy to throw? No, he's out there and empty trying to run the play. Like, get this out of here. I don't want this. But like I said, I'm not going to complain too much. But I did get a little frustrated. I thought Burrow played pretty well, better than I expected. That's, I think, what I came away from. I thought he would look like he did in parts of that first half where the arm, it felt like the accuracy was a little scattershot. It felt like he was overthrowing some of those go balls. Felt like he was missing once in a while. It seemed like he was playing with anticipation, both over the middle and outside. A little check down happy at times. We don't know what's going on down the field. Overall, thought he played good, not great. Like, my expectations for like a prime Joe Burrow game is a little higher than this, but this is certainly not a bad game. And like Art said, between the two quarterbacks, I mean, yes, it sure did look, when Lamar Jackson had the fumble on the pump fake, it was like, okay, that looks like the guy who has missed a lot of time and is rusty, and not the other way around.
I'll jump in here real quick, Art, before I get to you. Joe Burrow was sacked one time. Do you know, or do you remember that sack was on a corner blitz by Marlon Humphrey?
Condensed formation, yeah.
Yeah.
So
two tight slots, and and actually, had the back not got so involved inside by the Mike linebacker, he would have seen it, and he didn't quite read it right. In a situation like that, especially with tight slots, and you can't tell because the disguise is so good, you're slow to go. And he got a little too excited to get up in there and missed him coming off the edge.
Well, I mean, look, there's so much to get into about Joe Burrow's performance tonight. I think, too, and I'll ask you about this before we transition to our next conversation. This seems like a performance that Joe Burrow can absolutely build on, and I wouldn't be surprised if he goes into Buffalo, and we all know what happened the last time he went into Buffalo. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes into Buffalo and just goes nuclear in terms of stats. Are you two in the belief that he can do that, build on this performance, and do something special in Buffalo in, 10 days from now?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, I certainly think he can.
He is one of those guys that, I mean, he accepted the challenge to come in here, play on Thanksgiving, prime time. He's in the middle of it. and he's playing against an MVP player and steps up his game. Well, next week, he's got an MVP quarterback he's playing against. So he's just such a great competitor. And I think that, hey, the sky's the limit for this kid. He is fun to watch. And you know what? There were a lot of drops that we had that were, you don't know how the ball came out as fast. Were those wideouts used to that speed coming out?
Yeah.
Or, rather than the ones behind him or over the top like Lamar had. And there were a couple of drops that I thought could have been really third down significant. And, we ended up having to punt the ball.
Yeah.
Mike.
I would say yes to Burrow could go nuclear against Buffalo. I also think Buffalo's had a pretty poor run defense. I would not mind them leaning on the run game in that one if it's working. Because I also don't mind Burrow not taking that many hits. I mean, he didn't take many in this game. It was a great performance of the offensive line, but they've also been doing a good job in the run game. I kind of want to see them just take over a game running the ball, which we haven't seen this Bengals team do in a while.
Yeah, we haven't seen him do it in a while, but tonight they outrushed Baltimore 128-123. And this is the Baltimore Ravens we are talking about here. There's one other element to this box score that stands out to me. We'll get into that when we return right here on Bengal Squad. This edition of Bengal Squad is brought to you by FanDuel. It is the NBA season, and we got some NBA Cup action coming up tomorrow/later today. And there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, and you can do that absolutely with a guy like Steph Curry who dropped 49 the other night, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. And you can also combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Don't forget to check out James Rapine and Jake Lisco with their recap and breakdown of tonight's Bengals victory in Baltimore Thanksgiving night. That is available right here on the Locked On Bengals YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcast, where you watch or listen. Bengal Squad, as we have mentioned, is a twice-a-week long-form conversational supplement to the daily Locked On Bengals podcast. Mike Santagana and Art Valero joining me, Alex Frank, on every postgame show. Art will join me, Jake, and James during the week. Before we continue, I want to wish you both and our listeners a very happy Thanksgiving. Hope you enjoyed some delicious food. Art, you told me before we came on the show that you were in a, quote, casserole coma, which rolls off the tongue very nicely. Mike, what'd you enjoy for Thanksgiving before the Bengals dismantled the Ravens?
I had like everything. I don't know. I had a turkey, mac and cheese, mashed potato, like carb city and turkey. is really what Thanksgiving is for me.
I tell you what, Carb City. Hey, listen, it's Thanksgiving. You can eat whatever you want. Okay, so I mentioned before. Go ahead, Coach.
Well, you know what? You have to carbo load for a program like this.
Absolutely. Listen, we go. We're in the trenches here, okay? Like we go. We get after it on this show. And Coach, I know, having coached with John Gruden and Pete Carroll, I'm sure you know about this word called energy, the energy bus. So we're bringing it. Mike's bringing it. James and Jake are bringing it. I try to bring it because, listen, the last 9 games prior to tonight, I mean, let's just put those in the rearview mirror, because I'm sure, and I thought about this, and this is totally okay, that there are Bengals fans that are going to want to talk about Zach Taylor, what this means for him, and if they're going to keep him for next year and the front office. We were not going to worry about that tonight. We'll worry about that at the appropriate time. There's one part of this box score, Mike and Art, that stand out to me. You look down and you see Jamar Chase has 7 catches for 110 yards. Didn't it feel like an off night for him at some points?
Not like the last couple. Obviously last week he was out. The time before he didn't have that big a turnaround. Tonight, and without T. Higgins, he came out, had a very good game, and it was great watching him on the broadcast, smiling that frustration level has dissipated. And I tell you what, it was fun to see.
You can tell this too, Mike. And I think what's interesting about Jamar Chase is Joe Burrow is the only quarterback he's played with, is the only starting quarterback he's played with since he got to college. I mean, this connection isn't just about, great highlight reel plays. It's a real thing. Do you see that, or did you see that tonight when you watched Burrow and Chase being reunited on the field?
Yeah, I complained about the go balls a little bit, but the offense finally did feel like it had a spark on that 40-something yard go ball down the right sideline to Jamar Chase, and it was just a classic play. Joe Burrow threw it up, got the moon ball into the air. Jamar Chase with amazing ability to track the ball and use late hands, and also kind of use that slow down bump into the corner to create some separation, not do a full arm push off like on the other side that got flagged, but just kind of slow down, bump him so it slows him down, and then he could speed himself back up and catch the ball. I thought that looked like classic Burrow Chase stuff. I thought it was there. I do think the Ravens are going to focus a heck of a lot on that matchup. He had some other opportunities. I think where it didn't look exactly the same was down the left sideline. There's the Awuzie pass breakup. It felt like there were a couple more opportunities that he had to turn that from quiet-ish 100-something yard performance into he had 150 yards in this game. So it's almost there. I think the connection's definitely there. They're, working with each other when they get the opportunity, but I did think there was a tiny bit of rust, just a tiny bit, but they completed that one down the right sideline. Felt like it opened up the offense. That was huge because it just felt like everything felt so stifled right before that.
You can talk about Zach Taylor and his questionable play calls, and there were some tonight, but here's what's so great about this Bengals offense. Andre Iosivas had one catch, 29-yard touchdown. Tanner Hudson had one catch for 14 yards, touchdown. When those guys were targeted, they came up with some huge catches. And you look at, I'll just point this out, Chase Brown, 15 carries, 78 yards. Samaje Perine, 14 for 39. Even Joe Burrow had 3 for 8. If you want to take it a step further, Drew Sample had a 3-yard rush. So you look at what the Bengals offense did tonight. It wasn't just Joe Burrow making great throws. And he said something interesting, or not he directly, but Melissa Stark was reporting on this before the game that Joe Burrow had said that he may not be able to move around a lot because of the special plate that was in his shoe. And my thought was, if he's playing, if he needs to move around, I think he will. He had a first down rush in the third quarter. He had some plays where he rolled out to his right and he would hit Jamar Chase on the sideline. The Burrow to Chase out route to the near sideline, gentlemen, that is such an underrated part of their game. Art, did you pick up on that when you were watching this game tonight?
Oh, absolutely. You know what? And that was, very quietly, he had 7 catches. But the ones that were really noticeable to me were the outs on the sidelines. Those were all timing. And he knew where he was going to be, the anticipation of the throw. They kept drives alive. They got people involved, and it opened up some of the other people. And I thought that was very, very, you could tell the chemistry was still there and doesn't need a lot to reconnect.
Mike, how impressed have you been with the offensive line and their growth this season? Because tonight they played, I thought, a really strong game.
Yeah, I think they've played really strong games the last few weeks, but tonight was almost an exceptional game, at least from my first watch. I'm usually watching them to see if pressure is coming through. What's the defensive line doing? Are they stunting? How many are they leaving in protection, etc.? And it felt like it was mostly just the 5 blocking, and they were getting 5 out in the passing pattern, but they were fine. And I know the Ravens don't have a truly fearsome pass rush. They've got some young guys that you can look at, and they've got Travis Jones, who's been a pretty good player, but Matabike is out. Despite that, you can only play the guy in front of you. You can't lend a better pass rusher to the team or something. They did a good job with their communication and their processing when they saw different exotic looks and pressure situations, because they were getting into some 3rd and longs during this game, and they felt like they picked things up okay. It felt like anytime there was pressure in this game, it was either, I forgot a bit about that corner blitz off the condensed formation. But other than that, it felt like nobody's open and Burrow's just rolling out of the pocket to create something. He's going to take a hit because he's in space and they can't block for him out there. But I thought that the offensive line, awesome. And not just in pass protection too. They've been really good as a run blocking unit for weeks now. And I feel like it's all going under the radar because of kind of the stigma that comes with the Bengals offensive line. But I would say this has been a pretty good unit for multiple weeks. And I think the addition of Dalton Reisner in that right guard makes it so like there's not even really a weak link that you can try to target.
Wow, when was the last time we said that about the Bengals offensive line? Let's go to the red zone. Burrow obviously had some struggles tonight there, which, I mean, look, you're going to have, that's going to happen throughout the course of even a career like Joe Burrow is going to have. But Art, I want to turn to you here because something that's always stood out to me about the red zone, and I heard, I forget who said this, may have been Dan Orlovsky who said this. When you are in the red zone, you're coming up with plays that gain X amount of yards, but they can't go beyond X amount of yards too, because you got to worry about the back line in the end zone. Is it harder, or like when you're talking red zone with your teams over the years with the Bucs, with the Seahawks, when you're in the red zone, like, are you guys talking about, okay, it's harder to gain separation because the formations are more condensed, the coverages are more condensed, it's hard to get separation. So is that what you saw tonight in the red zone for the Bengals? Like, it's just harder sometimes to operate down there with the shorter field that you're working with?
Well, you know what? You look at it two different ways. Like in Baltimore's case, and a lot of teams play it. Once you get into the red area or even on the fringe, about the 25 or so, things happen faster. And is the defense playing coverage? And if they're playing coverage like Baltimore was, that's when you almost have to force yourself to run the ball to get yourself into those, 10-yard, the 15 to the 10-yard plays, the 10-yard to the 5-yard plays, so you can get down on the goal line. And once you can do that, and you say, hey, you know what? Don't try to fit a route because the field, there is no back end. So you can't run a guy off and have things opened up underneath. Everything is in front of the defense. They're going to play too high, kind of quarters look, and make sure that they keep everything in front of them. And so that's why you have to catch and run and make those personal plays, those individual effort plays to get the ball closer down. If you can run the ball on first down and continue to move it, then you have better numbers in terms of being able to run it against somebody down there until you get inside, down on the true goal line, like about the 2-yard line.
Does the timing between the quarterback and wide receivers and playmakers, particularly Jamar Chase, is there more of an emphasis on that when you're in the red zone?
Yeah, everything happens so much quicker. Every break is sooner. Every complementary route to control the underneath coverage has to be there faster. And that's why you'll see a lot of teams condense the formation to create more space outside. You'll see other teams extend the formation to create more holes and have to force the coverage people to spread themselves a little wider. So it's personal philosophy of how you want to do it. But in my opinion, as a run game guy, once you get in the red zone, you get in that fringe area, they're playing coverage, run the ball. Run the ball and give you those advantages that short space will allow you to have.
It must be nice also to have had running backs on your teams that include Carnell Cadillac Williams and Marshawn Lynch. Those are stories I can't.
Hey, you fight for those guys.
Absolutely. Mike, what'd you see in the red zone tonight that maybe led to Joe Burrow kind of uncharacteristically struggling tonight there?
Not even a threat of a run game. I think that's what was like the most frustrating. Like I said, when they lined up an empty gun at the 2-yard line on 1st and goal, and the next series, the first down, they're in under center. It's like, well, why didn't you do that? He can do it. They're not protecting Joe Burrow's foot. He played under center throughout this game. I didn't understand that whatsoever of like not even having a running back there. And there's another play where Drew Sample is back there as a pass protection back. It's like, you're not going to hand him the ball. You mentioned this one rush attempt. That was a pass behind the line of scrimmage. That was really another pass attempt for Joe Burrow, but it was just really frustrating to have half of your attempts on 4 downs just not even have a threat of a run game.
Yeah.
Ignore, like, yes, they didn't run the ball. They didn't even like show the ability to run the ball. And I think that's what's really frustrating. Even in empty, they could have motioned somebody across and done like a little jet sweep tap pass type of thing in front of him to hold defenders. But no, it was static. And that was the most frustrating sequence to me, because in my head, I thought you're going to look back at this and be, man, I wish they scored points in those 4 downs from the 2-yard line, because it really made me, and I'm not a tush push guy, but I was like, I get it. I get what the Eagles do when they get down to that 2-yard line. It's like they're overthinking it. You get out there and you overthink it, where the Eagles know what they're doing. They just line up and they just throw Jalen Hurts over top of the wall and he gets a touchdown. Great. And you obviously don't want to do it with Joe Burrow with the injury, but man, that was the most frustrating sequence, to not even have a threat of a run game. I don't even care about lining up in like some type of big goal line package, but could you at least get under center if you're going to be 11 personnel and just have like, I could hand this off and hit it quick, and Chase Brown could just jump over the top, or Samaje Perine could just try to plow through, just something there to be a threat. But that's the most frustrating thing to me, to line up in empty, especially with Joe Burrow not playing until today for months. I think that was extremely frustrating. But like I said, I can't complain too much when they score 32, but it should have been closer to 40. It should have been closer to 40 because of the opportunities they had from the turnovers and everything. And you look at that situation, where I would hope next week, with a run defense that has been kind of poor, that they've kind of learned from this, and we're going to line up under center. We're going to give a good threat to run this ball in this situation, because you need to be able to protect your quarterback a little bit. He shouldn't be an empty in that scenario. Maybe on 4th and goal from the 2 or 3, where I'd buy it more, but 1st and goal, where getting even a yard there does help you, is really frustrating.
Yeah, it is. And that goes back to what Art was saying. You got to be able to run the football in that situation. Just hand it off to Chase Brown or Samaje Perine. Let's see what they can do. I get it. You have Joe Burrow, you have Jamar Chase, but you also didn't have T. Higgins tonight. So where the ball is going if you're the defense. The Ravens defense is smart. Zachary Orr is a smart defensive coordinator. So really good stuff there. But another key story from tonight, and we are going to talk about this, the defense feasting. 5 turnovers. We'll get into what impressed us the most about the much-maligned Bengals defense coming up next right here on Bengal Squad. So we've talked a lot about effort, unfortunately, this season when it comes to the Bengals defense. We talked about a lot after the Steelers game. I want to go to the play that, for me, turned this whole game around. So Jordan Battle, who we have criticized heavily for not being able to tackle, he's been out of position, what have you. That hustle to force that fumble on Isaiah Likely. Art, when you saw that play, because you've been talking about effort a lot.
Yep.
What went through your mind when you saw that play and you thought that was a good hustle play right there?
Oh, it was, the great thing about it, it was great hustle on 2 of their parts. And because there were 2 people around the football, but when you saw him, not give up, not let him just walk in the end zone, but have to battle for it, then he was able to strip it. And where he stripped it, right there, because the officials scored, gave up the touchdown that they had scored. And he just did a great job of getting to the football, stripping it like they work on, like they practice every day. And there was somebody there to be able to grab it too. So I thought that was big. The other one that I thought was huge was Miles Murphy tracking Derrick Henry down.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that kid has impressed me more the last 2 weeks because of his effort. And now he's turning it into, you know what? He can still work on his pass rush moves, but just having a guy like that forces a lot of the other ones to say, whoa, look at this guy. I mean, it was outstanding effort on the defensive guys' parts.
Yeah, look, Miles Murphy, there's still areas of his game that need fine-tuning, as you mentioned, absolutely, but he's making up for it by the hustle plays. He's making an impact, and it's rubbing off on this entire defense. Mike, I go back to the Von Bell game in 2020, because all week I kept thinking to myself, we just need that one play from the Bengals defense that says, enough is enough, we're raising the standard. I think that play by Jordan Battle tonight may be that play. Is that what you sense?
It could have been. It could have been for sure. I think that one's an interesting one too, because I think he was the guy that busted the coverage for likely to get so open. And it was a case of you've lost the battle, but that doesn't mean just lay on the ground and accept defeat. He lost the battle. App name, I guess. But he won the war. He won the war by fighting back and getting over the top, not wallowing in self-pity or whatever for busting a coverage, getting back there and getting all the way back there and forcing a fumble that goes out the back of the end zone, which good rule. I stand by that. I know people hate that rule. That's a good rule. The end zone is different. It's different. Yeah. There's so many people that think that's a terrible rule. I think it's just fantasy football brain that they want it down at the 1 yard line so they still get a touchdown or something. It's like, no, you fumbled the ball in the sacred area. That's defense ball now. That's the one area you can't do that. You have to be very ball secure in that situation. But yeah, I thought it was a good situation where, yes, Jordan Battle may have busted the coverage there, but to hustle, get back there, and force a fumble, I mean, that's a heck of a lot better than even just an incomplete pass. They got the ball back. So that's a good example of hustle, getting you back into a play where even if you have made a mistake. And yes, Myles Murphy chasing them down 45 yards downfield or something. I think the other one that showed up for Murphy, and Osai needs talked about too, I think after this, but the other play for Murphy was there was a third down and Lamar Jackson's escaping and Murphy's in contain and he's able to chase him out down the sideline and force a fourth down and a punt. I thought that was also huge.
Started the second half with that. You force a 3 and out, and then Burrow leads them on a touchdown drive to Tanner Hudson. This era of Bengals football with Joe Burrow, with Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins, that's your identity, and I'm okay with it. I love that, actually. Here's the thing. I'm not asking for the Bengals defense to ever be a dominant defense like the 2000 Ravens or like your 2002 Buccaneers or any other defenses that we've seen. Legion of Boom, which you saw the first part of that when you were with the Seahawks. I just need you to play hard, play smart, and make the plays when they're available. Tonight, Art, with Myles Murphy, and Mike, you mentioned Joseph Osai. This defense forced 5 turnovers. And my mother and my sister, who I'm watching the game with because I'm home for Thanksgiving, I told them, I'm like, the best defenses that I've seen from the Bengals in my lifetime forced turnovers. They weren't a dominant defense. That's okay. They made up for it by forcing turnovers. Or can you win? Can you sustain winning and success by being that kind of defense that lives off, creating turnovers?
Absolutely. You're going to win championships on defense.
Wow.
You're going to win games on offense. And when you have a solid group that everybody's on the same page and they're running sideline to sideline and they're committed to what their job is, and we talked about it last week, your job is the most important. And to see somebody get beat and then recover and make a play, that's infectious. And I go back to last week when you saw the Bengals have the goal line stand.
Yeah.
That lit a fuse like, gentlemen, why between the middle of the field we're going to let teams go up and down and then you're going to stiffen up there? Why not do it all the time? Because it's in you. And that lit the fuse to tonight. And it was crazy because you're playing against, really, you had to play tight to the line of scrimmage because of Lamar Jackson's ability to run and Derrick Henry. And they were to the point where they they stayed in their pass rush lanes and did not allow Lamar to beat them. And then when they over pursued Derrick Henry a couple of times, but then they shut the door on the other ones where they build a fence around that big guy and were able to stop him. And my hat's off to the defensive staff and to those defensive kids.
Yeah, it's really an impressive performance. And as the season continues, we'll talk about what this means for Al Golden and some of the defensive coaches. It's a revamped defense completely almost. It's a revamped coaching staff from, Lou Anarumo and his staff. But let's look at, because we've talked about him, Derrick Henry. And look, we all know Derrick Henry is going to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame one day. There was a graphic that they showed on the broadcast that he just passed Jim Brown. I mean, when I mentioned the name Jim Brown, holy smokes. But he passed Jim Brown for 11th all time in rushing yards. And the guy that was ahead of him, Tony Dorsett, and the other guys down the list, Marshall Faulk, Edgerrin James, Jim Brown, LT. I mean, these are all Pro Football Hall of Famers, which Henry's headed to. But If you take away his 28-yard touchdown in the first quarter, he had 9 other carries for 32 yards. I mean, that is something I can absolutely have confidence in. Mike, how impressive was it for you? Because the way the Bengals defense played against him, it reminded me a lot of what they did against him in the playoffs 4 years ago.
Yeah, I thought they did a really good job on Henry because it didn't really feel most of those runs didn't. He had the 2 big ones, and other than that, it really felt like he was a bit stifled by this Bengals run defense, which, to be fair, wasn't a great run defense before going into this before last couple of weeks, but they've stiffened up. I think what's impressive about what they're doing with Henry is being able to get him down, and it didn't feel like there were ever plays like you think of the Darnell Washington play from a few weeks ago. Like that feels like something that you could have also given up to Derrick Henry, where he throws one of your guys down, he runs somebody else over. It just looks like he's unstoppable freight train. They never let him get that full. They let him twice kind of get that head of steam. But other than that, the thing with Henry is always getting multiple bodies to him like before he can get moving, because he's not in a super fast accelerator, but once he hits that top speed, it is runaway freight train. It is, how do you stop 200 and whatever 40 pounds sprinting like that? But yeah, I was impressed by the run defense throughout this game and against Henry. And I think when you're playing against Lamar Jackson, it's always going to be an extra +1 in their run game, which makes it even more difficult because you're wasting an unblocked defender that's probably working against Jackson, whether he's working surf technique down the line, or I saw some other plays where they're trying to scrape the linebackers over. It's a waste of a defender against Derrick Henry. So they're playing down one man, playing a little bit like a hand behind their back when they have to do that too.
Derrick Henry, 10 carries for 60 yards tonight. The Ravens only rushed for 123 yards on just 22 carries. The Bengals had 11 more carries than the Ravens did. When you looked at the first half stats, that's actually kind of impressive. Or when you watch a guy like Derrick Henry, I mean, he's one of the most physically imposing, strong humans I've watched play NFL football. When you watch a guy like Derrick Henry, what the Bengals defense did tonight, it just makes it that much more impressive, right?
Absolutely. You know what? He is such a threat that if you try to go thin on the back edge, you know, with the linebackers getting depth in their drops and stuff like that, they're playing soft and they can't handle a guy like that. When you have 2 of them, you got him and Lamar Jackson, the linebackers were playing a little tighter to the line of scrimmage. That's why they were able to get the tight ends over the top and into those big holes, because the linebackers weren't getting as much depth as they have the previous 3 weeks. And so having those guys be more, instead of pass coverage guys, be more run stoppers, you know, I think it was very beneficial for them. And the secondary kept everything in front of them, and it worked out really well for them.
For as complex and as difficult of an offense that the Ravens have to stop, it is pretty simple what they want to do. They want to run the football and utilize their tight ends. In fact, only 4 passes tonight were caught by Ravens receivers. DeAndre Hopkins had 2, and Zay Flowers had 2. Oh, by the way, he fumbled on one of those. So Isaiah Likely had 5 for 95. Mark Andrews had 4 for 47. Lamar Jackson, by the way, did not throw for a touchdown in, I believe, his 4th straight game, which is really something for a 2-time MVP and the struggles that he's having this season. Art, I'll go back to you. Before Mike, I'll go back to you on this. But from you were a tight ends coach. From your perspective, why is it that tight ends just get so wide open against this Bengals defense? Like, is it something that the teams are doing, or is it weaknesses and holes within the Bengals defense? Because every time I watch it, every time it feels like there's a tight end running wide open in the middle of the field.
Well, I think a lot of it is happens to be that the way that they're playing the front and coverage. That's why I think if you look back at all throughout the season, where they really struggled is against play action, and especially on first and second down. They struggle against that because the linebackers are so close to the line of scrimmage. They absorb all of those fakes, and now you can get a tight end back behind them or on a deep over route where the coverage has been cleared out by one of those wideouts. And I think that they've done a great job of adjusting to, okay, hey, the tight ends are hurting us right now in the first half. So then all of a sudden they started to loosen them up a little bit because they knew the run game. They had not abandoned it, but Lamar wasn't the same Lamar. And Derrick Henry was obviously frustrated coming off and only getting, not getting the big chunks that he normally gets. And because the defensive line did a great job, linebackers did a great job of rallying to the ball.
Is Barrett Carter someone that you think is an emerging core member of this young defense?
I think he's, I think one of the things with the tight ends is also just these rookie linebackers have shown some rookie struggles in that area too. And I know it is hard, especially modern NFL feels like it is specifically designed to attack those guys with that play action, the over route behind it being one of the major staples of the league. I think it's up and down. I think I really like that he's tackling better. I do think his coverage hasn't matched it quite yet. It's hard to tell watching live if the coverage is matching it or not. But really, it feels like there are fixable things within what he's doing. I don't know if I would yet say like locked in starter for the next 10 years or anything like that. But it feels like there's some fixable issues just in terms of, like Art was mentioning, some with the depth, and that could be what the coach is asking of them. And then some of it is just knowing his role and assignment when teams are trying to target him. Like I think the Patriots were able to do quite a bit, but I think it seemed like he played better in this game with regards to his coverage because I don't think that Mark Andrews was really taking advantage of. I do think Isaiah Likely was getting open once in a while, but it also feels like the Bengals are kind of matching Likely with defensive backs a lot too.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like for every play that Barrett Carter didn't make, he made another impressive play. So, Art, you mentioned Myles Murphy's chase down of Derrick Henry at the end of the third quarter. If he doesn't tackle him, I'm kind of scared to think of where this game goes because on that drive, then Myles Murphy gets a pressure on Lamar, causes a tip. It's intercepted by Demetrius Knight. Mm-hmm. He runs it back a good way. The Bengals get 3 points, go up by 15. I'll go to this question. How clutch was Evan McPherson tonight? 6 for 6 on field goals.
We talked about him last week,
mm-hmm.
About what after the, 53-yarder? 60-yarder.
63 yards, yeah.
63-yarder. It's like he's been consistent. And, it's like going fishing. You go out and you catch enough crappie. They're terrible one-on-one, but you get enough of them, you got a chance. You know what I mean? And as long as you're coming away with points, that is all you need because they stack up. And then you get points on your possessions. The defense is getting you back. Now, we would love to get 5 turnovers every game. But when you're +5 in the turnover takeaway ratio, you're going to win games. And, if you can just get 2 a game and don't turn the ball over on offense, you've got a better, more likely a victory than not.
You can look at this box score tonight. Sometimes you can say like the final score is not indicative of how the game went. This time it was, okay? The Bengals ran 80 plays to the Ravens 57. The Bengals were 8 of 19 on third down. That's pretty good. The Ravens were just 3 of 10. The Bengals also held the ball for 38-46. The Ravens just 21-14. That's where this game was won. They kept Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry off the field, and then the Bengals, they got some. I mean, did they get a big run? No, but they got enough solid runs that it opened up so many other things that they did in their offense. All right, I hope that if Jim Mora is listening to this, he's not, because this next segment, I'm going to ask a question with one word that he doesn't want to talk about. We'll get into that next right here on the Bengal Squad Show. Before I get into the question with the one word that Jim Mora doesn't like, this is a reminder to check out James Rapine and Jake Lisco to hear their breakdown and recap of tonight's Bengals victory over the Ravens in Baltimore 32-14. That is available on the Locked On Bengals YouTube channel and the Locked On Bengals podcast feeds wherever you watch and listen to podcasts. I am sincerely sorry I did not mention this earlier. I'm just so excited about the Bengals winning. Locked On Podcast Network is the #1 sports podcast network in America and the world, and we are happy to have you with us right here on the Bengals Squad Show, the supplement twice a week, long-form conversational show with Mike Santagana at Bengals_Sands and Art Valero. I'm Alex Frank at Frank_Natty on Twitter. Art is at Arthur Valero 3 on Twitter. All right. The Bengals are 4-8. Is that great? No. But look, if longtime Bengals critic Chris Canty says the Bengals can still win this division, and then what the Bengals did tonight against his former team and the Ravens, should we talk about the possibility of the, don't say it, Frankie. Oh, I'm going to say it, playoffs?
They won a game, so you can't do the we're trying to win a game. The second after that quote, they won.
That's true. Good call, Mike.
Yeah. I kind of went over it. Like, I think the AFC North and the AFC in general is just weak. So, like, that's their path to the playoffs. And once you make the playoffs, it's just about taking it week by week. Honestly, it's just taking week by week throughout the rest of this season. You don't think about going, we have to do this or this. You're 2 games back of Baltimore for the division lead. And you have the one up on them by having the 3-1 division record and beating them head to head. So I think you just take it week by week. If you beat Buffalo and they lose, you look again, you're like 1 game back and we play them next week. Maybe the Steelers will be 2 games ahead of you still at that point or something. I don't know. But what I do know is just you take it week by week, and then if you make it there, then you can keep that thing rolling. If they do make it, they're going to be a hot team. I think that's the other thing you're going to think about here. If they somehow make it, they've probably won all of these games down the stretch, if not all but 1, maybe 2 of these games, because they're not going to make it going. Well, I shouldn't say they can't, but they're very likely not going to make it going like 6-11 or something.
No,
they're going to be much better than that. And going 6-11 would be winning like 50% of the games down the stretch.
Wow.
Yeah, it's going to have to take a lot of wins to get there. Burrow's won 7 straight starts, I believe. So it could happen. It could happen if they just run the table. But yeah, week by week, and then I think it turns into kind of like that. I think it was the 2000. Was that the 07 Giants that had kind of a losing record going in there, and then we're able to just super hot team, roll it off week by week and just keep winning games. I think that's the path that you're looking at, is just sneak in and be one of the hottest teams in the NFL.
By the way, if the Bengals go 9-8, I think they could win the division. Not only are you in the playoffs, then you'd be playing at home. And I guarantee you, whoever that 5 seed is, you're not going to want to come play the Bengals. What if it is Buffalo and Josh Allen? I mean, you don't know who it could be. Art, I'm going to turn to you here, because I don't want to say losing record here. I'll say below 500 record here. But you were a part of a team that made the playoffs with a record below 500.
Absolutely.
The 2010 Seattle Seahawks. So
the Beastquake Seahawks.
Yes. By the way, I got to ask this, okay? What was it like to be on the field after Marshawn Lynch had that Beastquake touchdown run? What was it truly shaking inside that stadium?
Oh, unbelievable. It was out of control. And, growing up in California, I'd experienced earthquakes, but it was that. It was so loud. And believe me, hey, we ran 27 power. And as a blocking element, we didn't block a soul. It was all Marshawn. And it was like, oh, yeah, I remember that play great because we didn't block a soul. And I was watching them, and then all of a sudden, he's loose. And then the place erupted. And it was out of control.
What's interesting is Mike Mayock, who was on the NBC call of that game alongside Tom Hammond in the booth in Seattle, was calling the game tonight for the Bengals and Ravens on Westwood 1 with John Sadak, who's the Reds TV play-by-play announcer. And I remember Mike Mayock on that Beastquake on the replay when he just completely shed Tracy Porter, Marshawn Lynch. Mike Mayock literally said, "Get off me," to Tracy Porter. So, Art, as that season's going for the Seahawks, you guys had a lot of tough losses that year. But what did Pete Carroll do down the stretch, knowing the division was very winnable? What was his messaging like to you guys, coaching staff, and the team to say, hey, we're still in this?
You know what? It was very, very typical Pete, because he's very upbeat, always positive. But he made it very, very clear to the team and to us that we have every game is a playoff game from here on out. And in order for us to have an opportunity, he would never mention chance, an opportunity to continue to play. We have to take each game as a playoff type game in order to get there. Then we will see what happens. And so we took them just like Mike had talked about. You take them one game at a time, one snap at a time, one competition at a time, and you just see where it takes you. And then you build up so much momentum that you're tough to beat. And you can end up being like Pittsburgh was going as even a playoff team and winning it because you're hot. And, you know, you mentioned the New York Giants team that went in with a losing record. They beat us in the first round. And we had won it. We had won the division or our conference with 2 games to go, and we sat everybody to rest them.
Yeah.
And we came out, we were the healthiest team out of the playoffs.
I do remember that playoff game in 2007. It was in Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, crazy things have happened. The Jaguars were 4-8 in 2022. They were in a winnable division. The Titans fell off. The Colts weren't very good. The Texans were rebuilding. They found a way in. I mean, it is. Look, is it a long shot? Yes. Are the Bills going to be a challenge? Yes. We'll get into that next week because you're facing Josh Allen. You're facing that offense with their tight ends, Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox. We'll see them on Sunday against Pittsburgh. So a huge game in more ways than one for the Bengals. But again, tonight is a night where, again, and look, the last 3 seasons for this team have been tough. They have been in the playoffs the last 2 years. Can they go this year? Sure. The odds are slim. But this is why Joe Burrow wanted to come back. I think he silenced a lot of people tonight. And Art, Mike, I'll turn to you first. Art, I'll go back to you. But like when you hear Joe Burrow say, I make a lot of money to play a kid's game, and that's why I want to be out here. I'm a football player. What does that do for you as a fan?
It's exciting. It just reminds you of, I think fans sometimes get too into the giant picture of this all and don't think of the smaller picture of this player who has a limited window to play and wants to just be out there and play the sport he's been playing since he's been young, that, you know, probably his favorite thing to do is play in these games. Because like I think I've said here, it's kind of like blink and it's gone. So you can't just waste an entire season because you're like, well, what if I get hurt and that hurts next year? That's true. Like that is true. There's validity to that. But on the other side of it is just you can't bubble wrap a player like Joe Burrow. It's going to do more damage to him physically. But I think that it's just something that, one, he's not going to take well, and two, you're taking away his window. And you're talking about, like you talked about those Derrick Henry stats too. And I'm not saying you play for stats or anything, but at the end of the year, you don't want to look up and go like, well, I wonder if I played the last 6 games of that season. Because we're talking about like 6 games. I'd understand if this was 1 game and he's like, should he come back? No, probably not for a week 18 game, but there is a small chance of playoffs here. And you just have this limited window. And I think Flacco's at the other end of it, where Flacco is taking every single game because he knows he's at the end of the road. Whereas Burrow, I think, can look at that and go like, one day I'm going to be there and I will have wished I played every possible opportunity available to me.
And look, it's something we haven't seen him do, come back mid-season from an injury sustained also during that season. Coach, when you heard the things Joe Burrow was saying this week about, well, should he be playing? Should he not be playing? Should he just be resting until 2026? First off, my thought was, okay, if you're going to wait till the absolute perfect time for him to return, that's not how you do it. It's if not now, then when? Because you're always going to worry about him, potentially sustaining another injury, unfortunately. But when you heard the things Joe Burrow said this week, did that just further confirm to you this guy is different? He literally said 12 weeks to come back from a turf toe injury is for normal people. I'm not one of them. When you hear your quarterback saying that, that just tells you, oh my gosh, we have somebody special in this building.
Oh, without a doubt. I'm telling you, he's a 2-time comeback player of the year. So with 6 games to go, to sit him down and say, no, you're not going to play, isn't going to happen for a guy that's wired like that. You know, I'd mentioned it before. He's the son of a football coach. He knows what it's like. If anybody ever told you were going to be beat up, banged up, tired, or sore, they lied to you. So get out there and compete and use the gifts that the good Lord gave you. And that's what this young man is all about. He is not one thing out of his mouth. Well, you know what? If I do get in, no, there is no if I. It's I'm going to go out there and show everybody how you fight through adversity, physical adversity, and continue to compete and win. So I mean, my hat's off to him.
He was the story tonight. He was the storyline going in, and he delivered an absolutely spectacular performance. He campaigned for the NFL to put the Bengals on Thanksgiving. He got his wish. He came back for this game, and boy, did he deliver. Look, it may not happen this season. The odds are slim. We've talked about it. But I still believe in my gut of guts. At some point, Joe Burrow is going to win the Bengals a Super Bowl. I truly believe it. And that will hopefully be sooner rather than later. Mike Santagana, Art Valero, Alex Frank with you on Bengal Squad. It's a late night. It's Black Friday morning. We know deals are popping. So get out there. Hope you enjoyed staying up late with us. We appreciate all of you tuning in. The comment section loaded tonight. Look, this was a fun night. I mean, this was a very fun night. Winning is a heck of a lot better than the alternative. And now we have some momentum going into next Sunday. I'm going to be there in Buffalo for Bengals Bills. It's supposed to be cold. Listen, I'm okay with this, all right? This is December football. I'm all in on this. Mike and Art will be with me on Sunday, December 7th, following the Bengals and Bills. We'll get you details on that as the time approaches. Art, you are back with me on our next show with James and Jake. Hopefully both of them can join. Hopefully we'll have Jake with us, who's been on with us midweek throughout the season. So we'll see what we get there. We may also have a Sunday show. We'll let you know about that. It's kind of weird with this Thursday Thanksgiving night game, but hey, that's what makes it fun. Don't forget, check out James and Jake with their recap and breakdown of this game on the Locked On Bengals YouTube channel and wherever you listen to podcasts. And also in Cincinnati this weekend, big weekend, the Bearcats taking on TCU in their regular season finale on Saturday. Jeff Carr, check him out, Locked On Bearcats. He also co-hosts Locked On Reds with Stephen Offenbaker. Mike Santagana is our resident film guru. He's got tremendous film breakdowns on Twitter and on All Bengals, Cincinnati Bengals Talk, part of Sports Illustrated with James and Jake. Art, longtime NFL coach. He's on Twitter at Art Valero 3. Mike's at Bengals_Sands. I'm at Frankie_Natty. I'm Alex Frank for Mike Santagana and Art Valero. Gentlemen, final thoughts before we close what has been a very fun night with a lot of good food involved.
Joe Burrow back, 5 takeaways. Life doesn't get any better.
Pretty awesome. We didn't even get to mention it. Thought Al Golden did an awesome job with his pressure plan too.
Thank you.
All that heat, because it really rattled Lamar Jackson in those must-pass situations.
Felt very similar to what Lou Anarumo did in that Week 7 game back in 2021. I got leftovers in the fridge. Don't worry, I'm going to the gym in the morning. We got great college football on, NFL football on Sunday. Favorite Week 13 game? Do you have if you've looked at the schedule, do you have a favorite Week 13 game you're looking forward to on Sunday?
Honestly, I haven't looked much, but I'd probably watch the Steelers-Bills game. I mean, that sounds like something very important for this team. Other than that, there's some stinkers too. Let's take a peek.
Well, one that I'm excited about is the Saints-Dolphins, only because my son coaches for the Saints, and I want to make sure I want to make sure that they at least start to progress.
I read earlier this week that this is the Saints' first game in Miami since 2010 in February when they won Super Bowl 44. I'll concur with you, Mike. Bills, Steelers, also Texans, Colts. That's a very interesting AFC South matchup there. We'll look forward to that. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This has been Bengal Squad Show post-game edition following a 32-14 win in Baltimore on Thanksgiving night. John Madden Thanksgiving celebration. For Mike Santagana at Bengals_Sands, for Art Valero at Arthur Valero 3 on Twitter. I'm Alex Frank at Frankie_Natty. Have a great rest of your holiday weekend. We'll talk to you next time on the Bengals Squad Show right here on the Locked On Bengals YouTube channel and the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network in America and the world, your team every day.